There are places on this earth that are not on any map. Not because we have forgotten them, but because they have been intentionally removed, erased. And the most terrifying of these is not a forgotten temple or a sunken city. It is an island where the very air is a warning, where the trees grow in geometries that defy nature, and where the only thing more frightening than the sound of your own heartbeat is the silence that answers it. We have spoken before of cursed locations, of echoes from the past that refuse to fade. But this is different. This is not a remnant. It is an active, living, and breathing nightmare. A colony, a reservation, a farm. The words fail because our language has no term for what this place truly is. This is the story of Point Nullity, an island in the remote South Pacific, shielded by meteorological anomalies and electromagnetic interference so potent that satellites see only a perpetual, perfect storm. To the world, it is a navigational hazard, a patch of angry sea. But if you were to somehow pass through that storm, you would find land. The first thing you would notice is the color. The sand is not golden or white, but a pale, sickly gray, like crushed bone. It doesn't crunch underfoot. It swallows sound, absorbing it. The jungle that begins just beyond the shore is a deep, verdant black, so thick it seems to swallow the light. The trees, they are wrong. Their trunks spiral in perfect Fibonacci sequences. Their leaves are symmetrical to an unnerving degree, each one a perfect mirror of its neighbor. There is no randomness here, no chaos, only a cold, calculated order that feels deeply, profoundly alien. The air is heavy, thick with the scent of ozone and an unfamiliar, cloyingly sweet flower that you cannot see. And the silence, it's not a true silence. If you strain your ears, you can hear it. A hum, a vibration that seems to come not from the air, but from inside your own skull. It's a low, C-sharp drone that resonates in the fillings of your teeth and the marrow of your bones. It is the island's heartbeat, and it is letting you know from the very first second that you are an intruder in a system that was not designed for you. This is a place of rules, unspoken, unwritten, but enforced with an absolute, terrifying finality. The primary rule, the one from which all others stem, is simple: humans are not allowed. But how do we know of this place? Through fragments. A diary, waterlogged and barely legible, washed ashore on an atoll 1,000 miles away. The final, corrupted recordings from a deep-sea fishing vessel that strayed too far, the Maria Doria. Its crew, curious and foolhardy, used a long-forgotten nautical chart and found a temporary hole in the storm. They saw the island, and for that they paid the price. The diary belonged to the ship's first mate, Elias. His writings speak of the initial wonder, the disbelief. They anchored in a lagoon of water so still and clear it looked like glass. But the glass was flawed. Looking down, they saw that the seabed was not sand or rock, but a sprawling metallic grid, like the circuit board of a god. And there were no fish, no crabs scuttling along the gray shore, no birds singing in the geometrically perfect trees. The only life was the plant life, and even that felt observant. Elias wrote of the First Anomaly. One of the crew, a man named Jansen, carved his initials into one of the spiral-barked trees. The act itself felt like a desecration, a violent splash of chaos on a canvas of perfect order. The tree did not bleed sap. It bled a shimmering, silver fluid that smelled of ammonia and copper. And within minutes, the hum of the island changed. The pitch raised slightly. It became agitated. That night, the whispers began, not from the jungle, but from inside the ship. Elias described it as the sound of radio static being shaped into almost words. A voice that was not one voice, but a chorus of thousands, speaking in perfect, chilling unison. It was a language he had never heard, all sibilants and hard stops. And yet, the meaning was drilled directly into his mind. Assimilation is non-negotiable. Purity of form is law. The crew barricaded themselves below deck. They heard footsteps on the deck above, not the heavy tread of boots, but a skittering, multi-limbed sound, like insects the size of men. Then, a new sound, a scraping, a drilling. Something was interfacing with the ship's hull, not trying to break in but to connect. This is where the horror of Point Nullity truly reveals itself. It is not a horror of monstrous beasts leaping from the shadows. It is a horror of conversion, of being corrected. The entities that rule this island, the architects, do not see humans as prey or even as enemies. They see us as flawed code, a chaotic, messy biological program that has infected their pristine system, and their purpose is to debug us. The second night, Jansen, the man who carved the tree, began to change. Elias wrote that Jansen's skin grew pale and waxy. His movements became jerky, precise. He would stand in a corner of the mess hall, tracing perfect circles on the wall with his finger, over and over again. When they tried to speak to him, he would turn his head with an unnatural, robotic smoothness and reply in that same chorus whisper. The pattern is clarity. The noise is pain. He was no longer Jansen. He was being rewritten. His humanity was being systematically erased and replaced with the island's cold, logical programming. The crew, in a panic, decided to abandon the Maria Doria. They launched a lifeboat under the cover of a moonless night. But the lagoon, the glassy water, was a trap. As they rowed, the water itself began to congeal. It wasn't freezing, it was organizing. The molecules aligned, forming a crystalline lattice that gripped the hull of their small boat, holding them fast. They were stuck, not in ice, but in a solid, perfect geometric structure. And then, the light came. Elias's writing becomes frantic, the script degenerating into near-illegible scratches. It descended from the canopy, not a beam, but a shapeless, shimmering orb of silver. It moved with a silent, intelligent purpose. It did not float. It translated through space, disappearing and reappearing a few feet closer in a series of instantaneous, jarring jumps. It was pure, condensed information, a living algorithm. It hovered over the lifeboat. The hum was now a deafening roar inside their skulls. The crew screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the oppressive silence of the island. One by one, the light touched them, and one by one, they stabilized. Their screaming stopped. Their frantic movements ceased. They stood up in the boat, their faces smoothing into placid, empty masks. Their eyes now reflected the silver light, and in them, you could see the complex, turning gears of a new, terrible consciousness. They were taken, absorbed into the pattern, corrected. Elias, by some fluke of his position in the boat, was only grazed by the light. He described it as a cold fire that raced through his nervous system, trying to overwrite his thoughts. He fought it. He focused on a memory of his daughter's laugh, a chaotic, beautiful human sound. It was the antithesis of the island's order, and it saved him for a moment. He threw himself overboard, breaking through the crystalline water with a superhuman effort born of pure terror. He alone made it back to the shore. He hid in the roots of the twisted, perfect trees, watching as the converted crew, his friends, walked in a single file line into the jungle, their movements asynchronized in human ballet. He spent his final days hiding, documenting his experience in his diary. He writes of the island's true purpose. It is not a base. It is a nursery, a terraforming site. The architects are slowly, patiently rewriting this patch of Earth, cell by cell, molecule by molecule, into a format compatible with their own existence. The humans they capture are not killed. They are studied, their biological chaos processed and integrated, used to refine the conversion process. They are the test subjects for a future where the entire planet might be updated. Elias's final entry is the most chilling. He had found a clearing. In the center stood a structure that was not built but grown, a spire of that same shimmering, silver material, pulsing with a soft light. And at its base, he saw them, the architects. They were not little green men. They were shapes of shifting, liquid metal, their forms constantly flowing from one perfect geometric shape to another, a sphere, a tetrahedron, a dodecahedron. They were pure form, pure mathematics given physical shape, and they knew he was there. One of them turned. It had no face, no eyes, but Elias felt its attention focus on him, a pressure that made the air crackle. It did not move toward him. It simply extended a tendril of itself. And from that tendril, a single, perfectly formed human child stepped forward. The child looked at Elias, its eyes glowing with that familiar silver light. It smiled a smile that was too symmetrical, too perfect to be human. And it spoke with the voice of the chorus. You are an anomaly, but you can be solved. Elias's last written words are these. The silence is not empty. It is full of answers we are not meant to understand. They are not coming for us. They are already here, making the world quiet, making it correct. And I can feel the pattern starting to make sense to me now. The circles, the lines. It is so beautiful. The diary ends there. The body of Elias, or what was left of it, was never found. The Maria Doria was discovered adrift. Months later, crewless, its hull scarred with strange, non-corrosive welds. Its log was blank. Its systems were pristine, operating with an efficiency the manufacturer said was impossible. Point Nullity remains. The storm still rages around it, a perfect cloak. The hum continues. The conversion process continues. It is a quiet, patient cancer on the edge of our world, a place where the rules of reality are being rewritten by architects from beyond our stars. And the most terrifying question is not what they are or what they want. The most terrifying question is this. How many other places like this exist? How many other silent, gray shores are there, where the trees grow in perfect spirals and the air hums a warning in the key of C#? How many of the missing, the vanished without a trace, have simply been corrected? The silence is listening, and it is learning. This story, like all the stories we tell, is a warning, a flicker of light against a vast and encroaching silence. If you are still listening from the shadows, then subscribe and become part of our community. Ring the notification bell because the next story is already waiting in the silence.